7 years ago, I was taken to a place that I cannot say that I have ever been on this earth by an angel of the Lord, and I was shown different things. Different things were explained to me. Since I was taken on this journey, I have asked the Lord repeatedly when I was supposed to share the message with his people, and I was always told it's not time yet, until about a month ago. So about a month ago, I was praying about it again, and I was saying, Lord, this country is in a weird state right now. The whole world is in a weird position right now. When am I supposed to tell the people? And my answer was now. So this is my recording. I will try to make it brief, but if you have a few minutes, sit back and listen, because it's actually important. So as I was waking, I felt someone grab my hand and pull me, and I was taken back into what was not me asleep. I remember vividly the smells that I smelled and the sounds that I heard and the things that I saw. I even remember the way that the earth felt under my feet. So I have never experienced a dream like that before. I have dreams and visions both on a pretty regular basis, and a vision has not ever even felt like that before. So I'm not exactly sure what you could call it, other than I was taken on a journey and I was explained and shown different things. So the first place that this angel took me, we were far away from what the destination was, and I could see in the distance this mountain, and it was really, really big. And as we were walking, it just got bigger and bigger. And I remember thinking, well, that doesn't look like a mountain. Like, mountains are kind of smooth. I mean, they have rocks and they're kind of sharp, but this doesn't look like any mountain I've ever seen before. And as I got closer, I could see that it wasn't a mountain. It was actually things, like a hill of things, but it was still massive. So in my mind, mountain-sized. And we got really close to this mountain, and I remember the smell turned my stomach, and I was just sick. And I was like, what in the world am I looking at? And the angel just pointed and said, look. And I looked, and I could see that it was not a mountain made of rocks or stones or anything, you know, that is a land formation. They were babies piled, like one thrown on top of the other, just in this. It still breaks my heart, all of these years later, to even go back and re-see the things that I was shown. But just these babies were tossed like carelessly, and some were really tiny, and some looked like they could have been full-term babies that I could have grabbed and held. And there was just blood. There was so much blood running down this mountain. And as I walked, I started to walk around it and see, just to take it in. Not that I really wanted to, but I was being told to look. And I stopped, and I thought I could walk around this for days and I would not get back to the same place where I started. And I remember looking up, in the point of the mountain, I couldn't even see. It was still really wide at the place where it disappeared into the sky. And I collapsed in this place that I was and what I was being shown, and I just sobbed. Like, oh God, if there's one thing that I really have a heart for, it's babies and kids. And it just was the saddest thing I've ever seen. And then the angel said, come. And I held its hand again, and we walked. And we walked over this span of nothing, like just barren land. And then we came to this cabin. So it was like a log cabin with a little porch that looked like it was broken and falling apart, and it looked really old. And out of the front door, which looked to me like it was even on its frame crooked, but out of the front door walked this woman, and she had brown hair, like down to here, and she had on a dress, like a long dress, just plain cotton, and an apron that tied around her waist and went down to her knees and had pockets on the front. And I remember that her apron was white and her dress was white with this little floral print. And I stood there watching her, like wondering what I was being shown. And she had this, like a dish towel in her hands, and she was looking out into the distance, and I didn't know what she was looking at. And she wringed this towel in her hands, and she screamed like this most blood-curdling noise I have ever heard in my whole life. And she hit her knees and she just sobbed, and she uncontrollably was just screaming and crying. And I stood there with the angel and I cried with her, and I didn't know what she was crying about, but the noise that came from her was just total heartbreak and pain and agony. And I've never heard anything like that, thank God, in my life. And I looked at the angel like, what is going on? And the angel said, look. And the direction that the angel looked, I followed the gaze, and over this field, rolling towards us ever so slowly, was this gigantic wheel. And to me, it looked like I have been to Tennessee and seen like the wheels on the waterways that would turn, and I'm not even really sure if they like make electric or what they do, but like a water wheel. That's what it looked like. And I saw it and I panicked inside, and I was like, the fear that came over me when I saw this thing was indescribable. And it could see me, and I knew that it could see me, and I didn't want to move because it was so, like the angels are described in the Bible as terrible. Not that they're scary or grotesque or anything, but just the respect that is commanded by them. They're referred to as terrible. And then we read after, an encounter with an angel in the Bible, and then the angel typically says, fear not, which I think we could gather from that the normal human response when we see something like that is fear. And this thing I was afraid of, and it did not have eyes. It couldn't see me with eyes, but I knew that this thing was coming towards where I was standing at the front of this porch of this old cabin. And with it was coming things that were not going to be pleasant. And then I turned a little bit to my left, and I saw these two little boys that were like 5 years old, probably between 5 and 7. They were young, and they had on raggedy, dirty clothes like they hadn't been washed in ages. They were filthy with mud on their faces, and they were holding these swords that were made of wood, like you see when you go to these medieval festivals and things. Like you go buy these old primitive wooden swords, and I guess the kids can play with them because you can't, I suppose you could get hurt with a wooden sword, but not as easily maybe as a really sharp metal one that's made for impaling things. But these two little boys were fighting with these swords, and they were angry. They hated each other, like with a hatred that made me nauseous, literally, to see these children that were so filled with hatred for each other. And it's so weird that one of the boys had on a red shirt and one of the boys had on a blue shirt, and I did not realize what that even meant until now. But I saw all of these things, and I was taken and shown this. And when I woke up, I could still smell the blood and the dead bodies, and I could still hear the screams of this woman echoing, and I could still feel the fear that I had as this wheel was coming towards me. And I prayed about it, and I asked God to tell me what they meant. I went to my dad, who is a tried and true interpreter who has never been wrong, very anointed man of God. And between him and what God had told me and was showing me, I knew that the abortion that goes on in this world, and specifically in our country, is not good, that God hates it, and the magnitude of these lives that he so carefully created and with such love knit together, for it to just be tossed away and for people to not recognize or understand that it hurts him, and that it is a big, big, big deal to God. And we as a nation have not seen the value in life that God has placed in it, and it angers him. And the cabin that I was shown represented our great nation and the principles that it was founded on. And our nation was crying because judgment was coming. And for the longest time, I prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. But God, please spare us the judgment. Because we can read in your word that where there's judgment, there's destruction. And there are people who have still failed to know who you are, and people who have failed to know that you are worthy of love. And I don't want anybody to suffer ever. For all of these years, I was not allowed to tell anybody. And I was okay with that. Because with the message that it was time to share it with the people came more dreams and more visions. And I really, really feel like we as Americans really, really need to humble ourselves and ask God to forgive us for neglecting the one thing that he puts so much thought and care into giving us, that we disregard and throw away like it's garbage. And I'm not condemning anybody if you've had an abortion. I know that the enemy is sneaky, and that he is a liar, and that he masquerades sin and evil as things that are good. And I know that it's easy to be deceived by the enemy. So you are not beyond forgiveness, and you are not beyond mercy, and you are not beyond God's grace. But I really feel like we need to be prepared for the judgment that is coming, and ask God to hold on to us and keep us in his hand, that we will be able to withstand when judgment does come. Because we can see all throughout the word that God is faithful, and that he is just, and that he does what he says he will do. And I don't know if it's too late for us to ask for mercy. I guess we are never beyond asking. But my spirit has been very, very, very troubled for over a year now about what was coming. And I'm not afraid, absolutely not afraid, because the maker of the heavens and the earth and everything in it is my Father, and I know him and he knows me, and we have a relationship, and he is my friend, so I am not afraid. But my heart hurts for all of the people who don't have a clue what is coming or what consequences, decisions that they have made. It is just hard, I guess. I don't have another way to describe it. To know that something is coming and that it is what God said he would do all throughout history, is that when his people turn away from him, that he will shake them and he will bring them back to him, because he loves us. So I shared this because I was told that it was time to share it, which brings a lot of uncomfortable feelings with it. But love each other, please, and love God, and know that whatever problems arise, whatever situations we are in, that God is always, always, always the answer. And he truly is the only one who can bring peace in the middle of chaos. And that if we look to him to be our provider and to put provision in place for us, that he is faithful. Know that God is faithful, but know that uncomfortable times are more than likely in the future, unless God decides to change his mind. So truly pray. Talk to the people who you love, who have ignored God for so long and put off his bidding and his drawing people to him, and just lift up God and continue to lift him up and praise his name and talk about how good he is, because the word says, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men. Right, all. So it's not our job to Bible bash people into the church pews. It's our job to testify and to help people see who we know through what we say and how we act. I love you all. Be blessed. Stand on the rock when everything around you seems like it's falling apart. God is good.